The PM says he'll stay on as an MP even if the Conservatives lose the next general election. Rishi Sunak said he'll fight to the last day as he responded to a question about a YouGov poll which shows that Reform UK has overtaken the Tories for the first time. The party's leader, Nigel Farage, has suggested he can be the voice of opposition. And Rishi Sunak has slammed President Putin for failing to attend a Ukraine peace conference. The Prime Minister has been among more than 90 Western leaders attending an event today in Switzerland. They're hoping that it will put pressure on Russia to end the war.
Putin has no interest in a genuine peace. He's launched a sustained diplomatic campaign against this very summit, ordering countries to stay away. And we should ask, why does Russia feel that they are so threatened by a summit discussing the basic principles of territorial integrity, food security, and nuclear safety? Instead, Russia's representative at the United Nations recently said, the only topic for any international meetings on Ukraine will be the unconditional surrender of the Kyiv regime.
And the Home Secretary has called for a full and urgent explanation after a police car rammed a cow in West London, and a warning that the footage we're about to show you does contain images of that injured animal. The vehicle hit the cow in Feltham before knocking it to the ground a second time. Surrey Police has acknowledged that the incident caused distress and confirmed it's been referred to its Professional Standards Department. The force says the cow suffered a large cut to its leg and is being seen by a vet. For all the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, rounding off our evening, it's time for those hilarious headliners.
Thanks, Ray. Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour. And I'm joined by the People's Gammon, Paul Cox. There he is. And the People's Princess, Cressida Wetton.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Very nice.
Thought it'd be nice. How's it going, Paul? Back in the normal chair?
Yeah, back in the normal chair after one. It's like I won a competition yesterday.
Yeah. The algorithms have sort of analysed your performance. They've put me back as host. Don't be offended. It's totally impersonal. How are you doing, Cressida?
I'm very well, thanks.
Cool.
Yes, I enjoyed watching. I watched you from Bristol last night with my mum, and we enjoyed your tie and you had a pink-grey combo going on, which
I've got a...
have to say was a triumph.
Yeah, and we enjoyed the volume.
Yeah,
as well.
That was mentioned three times at least.
Everyone could definitely hear you, and that's great. Let's have a look. It was great, really. Let's have a look at the front pages. So, the Mail on Sunday has, "It's lovely to see you too, Kate." The Sunday Telegraph, "Our Fair Lady lifts nation's spirits." The Observer, "Both parties will leave NHS worse off than austerity years." The Sunday Times, "Faith and duty guide me through my election trials," which is Rishi. And Sunday Express, "It's just Kate to see you again." Slightly inappropriate pun, perhaps. And finally, the Daily Star, "Nostradamus' cousin, 3 lines to win Euros." So that is the Euros in the bag, and those are your front pages. So what are the Sunday Mirror going with, Paul?
They're going with "Kate to have you back," which is a weird pun, but it's great to see her. I mean, it was a tripping the colour today. She was wearing a nice white number. That's about as much as I can say about her outfit. I don't understand the first thing about clothing. I've actually got a stylist now who chooses my clothes for me.
Yeah, I can tell. They've gone up a notch.
Yeah, they have.
I can tell you something about her outfit. Those stripes on the bow are a reference to D-Day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But wasn't it great to see her? And great to see the King as well. Both of them obviously having a pretty difficult year. They both look very well. I'm sure they're getting the best possible treatment. But I like the royal family. I'm a big royalist. No surprise, I guess.
No, that's how you got the job.
Yeah, exactly. But I was really pleased to see her there today.
Yeah, and I mean, the dress, by the way, Kinsey just gave us the maker of the dress, and I've already forgotten it in literally minutes. So we don't know, but she looked very nice, and it's great to see her out. The King seemed quite emotional as well. He seemed quite moved. Some people were saying, you know, is it because he's more ill than we think? Maybe he was just thinking about his mother. I don't know. What do you think, Cresta? Did you watch any of it?
Could be all of the above, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I think you might be spot on with the mother. Although, obviously, the royals aren't allowed to have feelings like the rest of us.
No.
True.
But I would find that very evocative if it was something tied to my parents.
Yeah, I mean, but do lizards really have parents?
That's a great question.
There you go, great
Yes,
question.
and we are joking, of course.
We are joking.
If Lewis said that, he wouldn't be joking, but we are joking about the lizards. We love the royals. And also, Meghan released a jam and some dog biscuits. I think it was her friend, but it was on her website or something like that. It was all very... I don't want to give out disinformation. I should have checked properly. But it was funny, so I said
the
it.
jam and dog biscuit sounds very Meghan to me.
Yeah, it's just very...
I don't think anybody watching this will know what's on Meghan's website.
Well, I mean, I don't want to libel anyone again, but she had to do... she had to do something because it was Meghan. Anyway, what have we got on the Sunday Times then?
Sunday Times PM, faith and duty guide me through my election trials. So this is Rishi talking about his faith. Of course he is. He's only got prayer left. You would, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's it.
You absolutely would, Rishi. Good luck to you. So the Prime Minister reveals how Hinduism helps him stay strong. I mean, is he staying strong? I mean, I don't know. Good for him if that's how he feels. And what's interesting about Rishi is that we haven't had prime ministers or politicians, really, who've talked about their faith for a very long time. It's fallen well out of fashion.
Had he been Christian, he may not have been able to.
I thought somebody might say that. I thought it would be him, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, Nick would agree with me, I'm sure. Yeah, I think it's become very much out of fashion, shall we say, to talk about traditional Christian values in this country, which is a huge shame. But it's good to see people talking about faith. I like that he's talking about faith. He does say something quite peculiar. I know you picked up on this, Nick. He said he was the original Brexiteer. I think Margaret Thatcher might have something to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, Farage might have something to say.
Yes.
I mean, it's so funny, the original Brexiteer, because he's just not associated with Brexit at all. Despite being nominally a Brexiteer, no one associates him with that, because it just doesn't fit his image, and you just feel it was for convenience. Maybe it wasn't, but it just doesn't really work, because it doesn't sell it.
But no one else running can say it, really, can they?
That's true.
Other than, of course, Nigel Farage.
Yes.
But I mean, in terms of the three,
the former mainstream parties.
former mainstream parties, exactly. Yeah.
I'm now calling them. Yeah. I mean, what was funny about this as well? I mean, he said he's going to fight to the last day. That's just how it works, Rishi. That's how days work.
Can you imagine if he didn't? I mean, that would be outrageous.
Just on the Tuesday before.
I'm fighting to the penultimate day, and then that's enough for me, to be honest. I've got a cricket match. Yeah, I mean, it's madness. But, you know, he's had a tough time over D-Day. You almost sympathise a little bit with that. And as for the faith, I say almost, some people won't. But as for the faith, you're right. Tim Farron, leader of the Lib Dems, not leader for long once he started going on about Christianity too much. And then
Forbes in the SNP.
Kate Forbes. Jacob Rees-Mogg sort of battled it out, but he, you know, received a lot of criticism for his Catholic views.
Yeah, they kind of accept it from him because most people believe he was around at the birth of Christ.
Yeah.
I can't let this go until we comment on this. In Hindu, this is Rishi talking about his faith. He says, in Hinduism, there's a concept of duty called dharma, which roughly translates is about doing your duty and not having a focus on the outcomes of it. Isn't that an unfortunate...
Yeah. So basically, he's admitting that I'm going to do this even though I'm not going to lose.
Head down, I'm working away, and I'm not thinking about what's going to happen.
Yeah. He could have been a bit more outcome focused. Yeah. But if I'm being very fair, though, he did. That is what Rishi's about. He's sort of a hard worker. He get on with it behind the scenes. He just doesn't understand politics. Hence, he won't be prime minister for long.
He's also the head of a party that the brand is dead.
The brand's dead, as they say, but because we have to be very objective, I'm going to say the brand's not dead, so we've got balance.
Yeah, exactly.
It's alive and kicking. So let's do I'm not sure if that's how it works, but I didn't go to the training sessions. But how's the Observer going, Paul?
Both parties will leave the NHS worse than the austerity year. So Labour and the Conservatives will both leave the NHS with lower spending increases than during the years of Tory austerity. This is in the Observer, which is basically the Guardian on Sunday, according to an independent analysis of their manifestos. And here's my suggestion, because what they're talking about, the most anyone's talking about investing in the NHS is £2 billion. Do you know it costs £10 billion per year to try and reach net zero, which is never going to happen? £10 billion. Which is 5 times what they're looking to invest in the NHS. And you can look at the NHS and say, there's no way you can ever do anything with it without reform. But I'll tell you what, £10 billion a year would make a huge amount of difference. Well, so I'm here now standing for the Gammon Party, and I pledge free bacon sandwiches for all children and £10 billion a year.
And do you know what? You could stand as an independent for the Gammon Party and probably win a seat somewhere, because that's the mood of the nation. But do you know what? That is an interesting point. And net zero, I look outside today, I didn't go outside because it's lashing with rain in June. I think this climate thing is covered. Let's take that money, put it on the NHS. What do you think, Cressida?
Well, I think this says that it's due to... The conclusion here is after an independent analysis of their manifestos. Well, manifestos don't talk about spending lots of money, do they? So that's suspect to start with.
Yeah.
They might be promising not to spend a lot now, but let's see what they actually end up doing.
Manifestos aren't exactly worth the paper they're printed on these days. Let's have a look then at the Sunday Telegraph, Cressida.
Sunday Telegraph. Our Fair Lady lifts nation spirits is their main headline, but they're also going with Genrick. I share voters' frustrations, but backing reform means a Labour dictatorship. So he's saying ex-immigration minister says the success of Nigel Farage's party threatens to kill off conservatism, or indeed restore it, some might say. So I would expect him... he must be very frustrated because he's Robert Genrick and he's a right-wing right person.
He's just a Tory from the 90s, is what he is. Interestingly, and I understand the strategy behind this, a vote for reform would split the vote on the right and give a massive majority to Labour, is the fear. How about, and they haven't considered this yet, the Tories stand aside and let reform take the Tory votes?
Well, that is what Reform will be saying, because they've gone ahead in one poll anyway, at least, and so they're very bullish on that. Yeah, and that is very much the party line. Cameron's saying the same thing, you're just going to let Labour in, and it could be a Labour dictatorship because they're going to get so many seats. But I think I'd like to see Genrick and Farage together. I see Genrick as a kind of policy guy. He came up with this very detailed immigration plan. He's a serious guy. He's known as an up-and-comer. But I'm not convinced he's the front man. So why not put Genrick and Farage together? That would be a party.
I also think that equation doesn't take into account that there are a lot of old Tory voters out there, ex-Tory voters rather than age-wise, that just won't vote because they're never going to vote for Labour. They're unlikely to vote for Lib Dem. And if you tell them they can't vote for reform, they won't. So it doesn't take into account that there will just be none of the above, whereas reform actually gives people on the right, or, they used to be the centre of politics, an opportunity to vote for something they care about. So I don't buy into it. I understand what they're saying. I understand it. But I don't necessarily think it's true.
OK. I'm desperately thinking how to offer balance to that, but Labour are great. I don't know. Are you against Labour and the Lib Dems?
No, I think all of them are equally as good and bad as one another.
Brilliant. We've got it covered for the Ofcom stuff. So I think that's pretty much it for this section. That is the front pages dealt with. But coming up, Tice demands a head-to-head with Starmer. Will Murdoch back Labour? And are people getting sick of net zero? See you in a minute.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Tens of thousands of British troops joined Allied nations storming the beaches of Normandy.
D-Day opened the long-awaited second front, of course, helping to liberate France from Nazi rule. This isn't just a commemoration, is it, of the history, Cameron? It's very much a royal event.
Yeah, it absolutely is, because as we said earlier, the King, and by extension the royal family, has an incredibly important relationship with the armed forces. The King is Colonel-in-Chief, the head of the armed forces, so he knows the sacrifices that these people make. And his grandfather, of course, was monarch during World War II, and he spoke of his grandfather's frustration that he couldn't go across to Normandy on D-Day itself because it was far too dangerous. The British government wouldn't let him. Similarly with Churchill as well. But what he would have done is heard the stories from his grandfather and also his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. So the King and the Queen heard all these harrowing stories. And I think with all of that in mind, when we saw them yesterday in Portsmouth, I think the emotion perhaps overwhelmed the Queen, as we've seen on the front pages this morning. The King looked visibly moved as well. He gave a very heartfelt speech.
And the King and the Queen during the war, Cameron, were incredibly important part of it, because there was a suggestion that the Queen and her children, which had been Princess Margaret and the future Queen, should be moved to Canada, to live in Canada during the war to protect them. And she said, I go where my husband goes. So she stayed in Britain. They stayed in Buckingham Palace. Buckingham Palace took bombs during the Blitz. There was the famous moment when she went to the East End and said, I can now look you in the eye, because the palace had taken bombs too. And the King's broadcasts, they were incredibly important to keep the British morale going.
They absolutely were, and the King did eventually go and visit the Normandy beaches around 10 days after.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with Paul Cox and Cressida Wetton. And let's crack on and get on with it. So the number of private school pupils has gone up, and presumably the Observer are furious, Paul.
They're not, actually, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Number of private school pupils rises despite claims families priced out by Labour's VAT plan. So the number of children attending private schools in England has risen, new figures show. Now, this is The Guardian, and of course they're very supportive of Labour's VAT adding to private school fees. And what they're trying to say is, look, that hasn't changed. What they're omitting to say until much later in the article is these are figures that measure back between 2020 and 2021. This doesn't take into account the sense of feeling about this VAT rise now. And it is the politics of spite for me. They are anti-aspiration, Labour at the moment, and they often are. They think that this is a huge winner if you hate people that have any form of aspiration or money. Now, I'm expected as someone from a working class background to obviously hate private schools. But I was talking to Cressida about this before we went on air. Now, we're not talking about the Eatons of the world here, where people are going there anyway, and it doesn't matter if VAT goes on. We're talking about people that are paying £15,000 to £25,000 a year to try and give their children the best possible start in life. And we can deny it till the cows come home, or till the police run the cows over, but it's true that you do get a better experience in a private school, and you're going to be hitting those middle-class people hardest.
Yeah, well, that's what the left love to do. I mean, they hit the grammar schools and they destroyed those, which allowed my parents' generation to have social mobility, who were, you know, like my dad, and they took that away, which I've never forgiven them for. And now they're taking away, this is the kind of next best thing you can take away. It'll just be, all education has to be the lowest common denominator. What do you think, Cressida?
Well, what irritates me is the idea that if you take the money away from the private schools and put it into the state schools, that's going to automatically improve the state schools. And OK, smaller class sizes, yes, that would help. They're talking about 6,500 more teachers. But I want to see the Catherine Burble-Singh Michaela School stuff, you know, the discipline, sort of making sure people turn up to school would be a good start. I mean, that's a major problem at the moment. And those things aren't necessarily things that cost a lot of money. It's a cultural change, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that would be far more beneficial. If you're interested in pulling people up, the Michaela experiment is brilliant. We know that those kids get much better results. But I don't know, it does smack of the politics of envy.
It's disingenuous because these figures are so long ago. It's like taking a poll of people about cigarettes from the 50s. People really like cigarettes. You know, they don't anymore.
And it's typical of people with left-wing values to not think that imposing taxes is going to have an impact, isn't it?
I guarantee this, and I'll stand corrected, and I don't know who wrote this, it doesn't tell us in our information. The person who wrote this either went to a private school themselves or is friends with lots of people that did. And they pulled the ladder up. They pulled the ladder. I'm all right, Jack. See you later. Here's 20% tax for you, Wallies.
Yes, the worst thing is guilt from actually privileged people. Very annoying. All right, let's do the Mail on Sunday. And Richard Tice demands a head-to-head clash with Keir Starmer. Sounds dangerous, but Keir will be fine because his wife works in a big NHS hospital and his dad was a toolmaker, Cressida.
Reform Chairman Richard Tice demands his party get a head-to-head TV clash with Keir Starmer, claiming his party is now more important than the Tories, despite only beating them in a single poll. So this is the Reform big news this week, that they've beat the Tories. They're now saying, look, we're the legitimate opposition, not the Tories. We should be allowed to take part in this TV clash. And what's interesting is the BBC haven't ruled that out. So historically, this TV debate, the people who are invited to it, it's based on who had the most seats in the previous election. Obviously, that wasn't Reform. They had one. But Richard Tice is making the case and saying, look, it's not democratic to do it that way. We matter. And if you don't let us into this debate, millions of people are going to be very, very angry. And, of course, Farage desperately wants to get involved in this. And he says, if the BBC want to fight with me on this, they can have one. And I don't think that's a good look for the BBC.
No, it's really interesting. You expect Richard Tice to say these things. Of course you do. He's the chairman of Reform, and you know, good on him for doing so. I think he has a point. I think what we need to see, we can't. They can't rely on that poll. That's a YouGov poll commissioned by the Telegraph.
It was one poll, but it was a big, beautiful poll. It was tremendous.
Tremendous poll. Well, some of the best polls we've ever seen. If we get 2 or 3 more polls where they're points ahead of the Tories, he has a really good point. I think they should push for this. I think we should see the Reform Party stood up there with the former mainstream parties, as Nick Dixon was.
Well, what this is doing is it's highlighting the problem of first past the post, isn't it? It's kind of shining a light on it. So I think the BBC could make a decision. I mean, they might get to a point where they have to do that anyway if Reform's popularity goes up and up.
Yes.
But it's also shining a light on the fact that the system favours the people that are already there. So in a way, the BBC might want to appease the masses by having Farage there.
They might, and Farage is always good TV for them. I mean, like you say, there will come a time, presumably, where if the current trend continues, although the BBC said to Farage the other day, well, it's a big if, isn't it? But if it continues, then there will come a day when Reform are the opposition, and they'll have to do this. Maybe we're not quite there yet. Starmer's still dismissing Farage, saying that Clacton is pantomime politics and so on. But when you think about some of the people on that 7-way debate, I'd never seen some of them before. And then by the second one, I'd already forgotten about some of them already. That Welsh guy, can anyone remember his name?
No, at all.
And then there's the Green leader, which no one thought was even the leader of the Greens. Since Caroline Lucas, no one knew who that was. Basically, it was Rayner, Farage and Mordaunt, and then some other people.
You can't actually really have a 7-way debate, can you?
Right.
It's just, I mean, you've forgotten you give them all a topic. You've forgotten by the time you get to the 6th person's view on the topic of debate, you've no idea what the first person said.
But had somebody come along who was very, very shiny and a really good speaker, I think that would have come. It's an opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Nigel Farage yesterday had his press conference, and do you know what? He did it all off the cuff, and it was interesting and engaging.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. All right, let's do the eye. And when it comes to political parties, Rupert Murdoch's company only backs winners, which some might say is cynical. But in case Murdoch ever buys this channel, I just like to say he's a great guy, smart cookie, Paul.
Yeah,
that's what I've always said about Rupert. Top lad.
Top lad, top bands. We back winners, Murdoch's Sunday. Murdoch's sons are ready to give Labour lukewarm endorsements. So Labour will miss out on a full-throated, in inverted commas, endorsement from Rupert Murdoch's newspapers, with Labour leader Keir Starmer expected to win only a lukewarm backing from The Sun. And that's what you might be thinking, maybe you're looking at this thinking, well, that doesn't make any difference. It does, in the sense that The Sun has always, in my lifetime anyway, always been the predictor. And he's saying we only back winners because they do.
Yeah.
They often jump in and they often jump in later. They take their time and they pick and they go with the win. What is interesting here is that it's only lukewarm because Labour seem ridiculously far ahead in the polls. But even Rupert Murdoch, the shrewdest of shrewdest people, is saying, I'm not 100% sure.
See, now you're sucking up to him as well. But yeah, I mean, lukewarm is so funny because it's such a Starmer word. Like, Blair apparently flew out to meet Murdoch when it was that sort of Sun what won it era. But you can imagine Starmer flying out and he still only gets a lukewarm endorsement and he goes, that's good enough for me. It just sort of accepts it.
He's got previous, hasn't he, with the Sun. He was responsible for bringing criminal cases against Sun journalists during the phone hacking scandal. So
Whoops.
I get the impression that at the Sun offices, there isn't a little gold statue of him in reception. So that's something to get over, isn't it?
There's a dartboard instead. Yeah, I mean, yes, but it does make... Do you think it makes a massive difference to have that kind of backing? They claimed it was a Sun what won it, but was it really?
Well, it feels like that's a bit of a dated idea. So that happened in the 90s when they were selling 4 million print copies. They're now selling 1 million. But they also make the point in here that 9 million people a day see the brand online. But we see a lot of brands online, don't we? And now we're in the age of... We're flooded with all these different podcasts and channels, and I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. It's a bit like betting on the winner of the 100 metres, 50 metres into the race when you've seen Usain Bolt just 10 metres in front of everybody else. If you were putting money on it, you'd back Labour based on the polls. But what would be really interesting now is a hung parliament. It would just break politics. There'd be no point in the serious commentator anymore. It would basically be us three sat at the BBC saying, look, those losers are gone. They didn't know what they were talking about. We're in charge now.
I think I am pretty serious, but I'll take your point. I mean, do you know what's funny about this? Just finally, it is kind of ironically the mood of the nation. Like you say, they're backing them, but only in a lukewarm way. And isn't that what basically most people in the country do? But anyway, let's look at the Sunday Telegraph. And net zero policies are losing public support. Who are these entitled people who don't want to be poor and cold, Cressida?
Net zero policies have lost public support over the past 2 years, poll reveals. So support for measures such as low traffic neighbourhoods and subsidies for electric vehicles has dropped. And to give some examples, in 2022, 67% of people supported frequent flyer levies, and this has now dropped to 62%. So that doesn't sound huge, but there's 8 different policies here, and it's dropped in each one. It's also dropped, unsurprisingly, support for LTNs, low traffic neighbourhoods, has fallen from 50 to 43%. Is that because people have used them? Have they experienced them?
Yeah,
and decided,
they've worked out what it means.
Actually, not that fun. And similarly with the electric vehicles, I mean, that's dropped. And again, we always hear these horrendous stories about them not working and not having enough charge points and all this. So I'm not really that surprised. What's interesting is the proportion of people who were very concerned about climate change has dropped. And I wonder whether that's just we've hit saturation point.
Yeah, it could because
people are still concerned, but they're not very concerned.
Yeah, 2 things. It's raining in June very hard, and I think it has been toned down in the media, perhaps because of the elections and perhaps because of all the wars. I do think it's moving out of people's minds a little bit. The media could easily shove it back in your mind again. What do you think, Paul?
Well, I think net zero has become the new Father Christmas. I mean, it's great fun to believe in as you're growing up, but then you do grow up and realise it's impossible and ridiculous. So
how dare you?
I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm offended for Father Christmas.
Please do not play this in December. But it is, isn't it? It's for children, net zero. It's for people that are easily convinced that these things are great ideas. Yeah, smashing. Me losing 6 stone in the next 3 weeks is a great idea, and becoming 4 inches taller, great idea. Also impossible.
OK. All right, well, we've got a little bit of time. I mean, I'm sure you can do it, by the way, Paul. That's what I meant to say. But I was thinking about this very exciting next story about e-visas. So let's do the Observer. It's a story about e-visas, which is what people in Yorkshire call visas, Paul.
Lovely.
Here all week.
Exactly.
This is my last
rushed, in inverted commas, rushed deadline for UK digital visas puts millions at risk of losing legal rights. So, a bit of background here. More than 4 million non-EU migrants living in Britain have these e-visas, which allows them to do a whole bunch of things. Have biometric resident permits that need to be transferred to e-visas. Now, these BRPs give foreign nationals the permission to live in the UK for at least 6 months, demonstrate proof of an individual's right to study, access public services and claim benefits. So what's happening here is that all 4 million of those people, the rest of their 6 months stay, and they're able to claim any legal benefits of being in the UK, relies on the Home Office rolling out a system on time.
Right.
So this might be the easiest way to get rid of illegal immigrants.
It's tough times for Deliveroo drivers, basically.
Very tough, yeah. I mean, I'd be concerned. But then, on the other hand, we were threatened with COVID passports. I mean, is this definitely going to happen?
Good question.
It sounds like it is. It sounds like they're planning it. And as you say, I mean, leaving the government in charge of any major admin is a risky business, isn't it?
Yes, I wouldn't do it. I'd go private. But that's very controversial. Keir Starmer wouldn't do it. That is it for part 2. But coming up, Al-Qaeda are on a recruitment drive. Bear Grylls is cancelled and a police car rams a cow. See you soon.
Hello and welcome to your GB News weather update, brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's going to be quite an unsettled weekend with some showers, some longer spells of rain, even some thunder at times this evening. And it's all because of this area of low pressure which is swirling around the UK, sticking around for Saturday and also Sunday. Into this evening, we'll see plenty of showers move their way across the UK. These are a little bit heavy at times, particularly across central areas. And we'll also start to see some longer outbreaks of rain move their way southwards into parts of Scotland. And a fair amount of rain around tonight, which means it's going to be a mild night on offer. So to start off on Sunday then, these outbreaks of rain will slowly move their way southwards across parts of Scotland. This could be a little bit heavy at times, particularly as it does push up over the hills. Elsewhere, it's going to be a bit of a mix, some clearer spells, but also still the odd shower at times too. A little bit blustery across the northwest of Scotland and a little bit blustery for a time across southern parts of the UK, but winds generally easing by the time we reach Sunday morning. On the whole then, for the second half of the weekend, a fairly unsettled day with showers, some longer spells of rain, and as the winds ease across the south, the showers will be fairly slow moving at times, but there should still be plenty of sunshine in between those showers, and the rain across the north will gradually break its way up through the course of the afternoon as well. A little bit warmer compared to today, 21 degrees across the southeast, perhaps even 22 degrees if we see those prolonged sunnier spells. To start the week then, still plenty of showers across the northern half of the UK, still merging at times to bring longer spells of rain, but overall a largely dry day across parts of the south and southeast, with still plenty of that sunshine on offer. There will still be some showers in the outlook, however, from Wednesday onwards, plenty of dry weather on offer too, with those temperatures remaining around average.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's crack on with the Sunday Times. And a police car has rammed into a cow in a way that has been described as unnecessarily heavy-handed. What do you think? Was he milking it, Cressida?
Was
milking
he milking it?
Like a cow.
This is a horrible story
Sorry.
that I've lost.
Shouldn't have made light of it.
And thank you very much, Paul. Right, Home Secretary demands urgent explanation after police ram cow in Surrey suburb. This is horrible. So the police have used their car to stop... OK, we've got the footage there. I mean, it's not a lot of fun.
I would say if you don't... yeah, look away.
It's not... Yeah, look away. It's not a fully grown cow, it's a calf.
Oh, that is nice.
And they apparently were trying to stop it for some time. They were worried about people's safety. And I know there are circumstances where people can die of being trampled by cows, but I find
Usually
that...
in a field.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's never happened to me. But I think this is... I mean, this really tells us something about the Brits, doesn't it? Because this is going to cause...
If that had been...
This is new Cecil the Lion territory
if
now.
that had been...
James Cleverley's involved. Go on.
No, you're right. If there had been a kid on a moped who'd just stolen a mobile phone off an old lady and had run him over, we'd all be going, get in there. That's it. That's proper policing.
But having said that, I'm an animal lover and I'm outraged and I do want them to explain themselves because obviously the RSPCA are involved now. Chris Packham's got involved, of course he has. And I guess there's going to be an investigation into this because it doesn't look on the surface like it was an appropriate use of force.
No, it's really interesting. I don't like seeing it. I really did not like seeing that. When I first saw it, it was sort of unfettered and you could see everything that happened.
Yeah,
and it just
horrible.
seemed the most outrageous thing I'd seen for a while. I do wonder if what the police could have done. I didn't know if they know. I don't know how they. I mean, this was in Surrey. This is in the outskirts of Greater London. I don't think they knew what it was. It was a bit like that. It was a bit like when the people in Hartlepool hung a monkey because they thought it was a Frenchman or something. They didn't.
Was it Halifax or Hartlepool? Was it?
It was definitely up in the northeast, so I'm going to go with Hartlepool.
OK. Yeah, maybe it was.
But one thing I would say is I do wonder if they knew what to do. I mean, I think there should be training now, and the first thing not to do is run it over with your car.
Yes. It's a tough job, isn't it, policing? And can I just say, I hadn't actually seen the video and I made my joke at the start, so please don't tweet me, because it was actually pretty horrific footage.
Just to say, the calf survived and has been to the vets and is on course for recovery.
Oh, good. The calf survived. So it's good. It was
And we'll be at
happy
McDonald's
ending.
sometime in the near future.
How dare you? It was a happy ending you've tried to ruin. Let's do the Sunday Telegraph then. And Al-Qaeda has invited any anti-Israeli brothers around the world to go and train with them. Now, who says there are no jobs for arts graduates, Paul? Hey?
Lovely stuff. Al-Qaeda invites anti-West brothers to Afghanistan. So Al-Qaeda has urged its supporters to go to Afghanistan and train for special operations against Israel and the West. Now, I had to read the whole article just to make sure that Al-Qaeda wasn't a pseudonym for the Green Party. Turns out that, no, they are talking about actual Al-Qaeda. And it's not really a surprise, is it? Not really a surprise. These people don't like the West. They don't like Israel and they don't like the West. So what we're learning in here is that what they're trying to do is get other people not to too. So, you know, perhaps if we want equality...
It is mad, though, isn't it, when they talk about their brothers wherever they are, you know, to join up. And you kind of think these days, yeah, half of London would probably be up for that. What do you think, Krista?
Well, I think we're all going to be sorry that we didn't let Jordan Peterson at our youth, you know, because, I mean, I don't... Maybe I'm being naive, suggesting that being a wayward lad is what might lead you to this, but I suspect there's some of that going on. I mean, one thing you can say about Al-Qaeda is they're probably into discipline and manly pursuits.
But yes, it's the indoctrination in schools, and you are right. I mean, the indoctrination in schools and universities, it's a massive, sort of decades-long problem that we've got to try and solve.
Yeah, Al-Qaeda, the Andrew Tate of the East.
Well, do you know, I nearly said, I bet that they're going to be sorry we didn't let Andrew Tate talk to the kids. I thought, no, he's a Muslim now, isn't he? Although that's not to say that he's a terrorist, obviously.
Very good point. Don't get Tate on you.
Well, yeah.
He's got money and he could sue you, and he's my bro. All right, well, should we move on before we all get in trouble and do the Sunday Telegraph and the disturbing link between watching the footy with the lads and domestic violence, Cressida?
Risk of domestic abuse will increase whether England win or lose in Euros, police say. And we do hear this a lot, don't we, that during important football games, domestic violence rises. I'm always a bit wary of that, because I read Christina Hoff Sommers' book, Who Stole Feminism, and not talking about the UK, talking about the Super Bowl Sunday in the US. This statistic was misreported for years, and she investigated it. And when she got to the bottom of it, people were sort of passing it on one journalist to another. So I just always remember that. But having said that, this is talking about the Met Police, talking about a new study from Lancaster University, which found that 38% increase, which is weirdly similar to that 40% Super Bowl Sunday. But there you go. So this is really warning people that domestic violence could be on the rise, and it's talking about what to do about it. And it's like an awareness piece telling people, I mean, of course, domestic violence can happen to men and women, but really this is to women, reminding them or telling them about the services that are available. And also there's a point in here saying that the vast majority of men who love football would never dream of abusing their partner, and also that football can be a force for good. And that's so true, because men that get involved in, again, discipline, teams, all that good stuff that would come with a football team, I personally think in the long term that's good and leads to better, well-rounded chat.
Yeah, I mean, I play five-a-side football once a week, and it's the only thing that stops me from killing everyone. Paul, what do you make of this story?
Clip that up. That will be the clip when you go on your inevitable rampage after you publish your manifesto.
The signs were there. He even admitted live on GB. They'll try and attack GBNews. They'll be disowning me. Just a joke, guys. Satirical content. Go on, Paul.
We do, like Cressida rightly points out, we hear this story every major football competition. So apparently it's easier to write about than it is to solve. And I say that very cynically because, obviously, let's say this is an issue. Why every 4 years or every 2 years, because we have a World Cup and then a Euros, do we write the same story and then do nothing about it? Why don't we do anything about it? What is the solution to it? I mean, women are as involved in football now as men are. So are boyfriends getting beaten up when the Lionesses lose? I don't know. I haven't looked at the statistics for that.
Well, no, that's just not, on average, how domestic violence works. And also, of course, when men attack women, on average, there's less damage, which is why more men kill women, or one of the reasons. And I'm sure, I mean, it's an ongoing thing, isn't it? It's not going to get solved, but it's really important to put people in touch with the services that are there if it's happening.
Yeah, it's a good, it's a valuable story. I hadn't heard the story you were talking about that's kind of a fake news.
Well, I want to be really clear. That's in America. It's about Super Bowl Sunday, but it's something that, that I always feel bad because I've quoted that so many times myself over the years, and then when I read about drilling out, when Christina Hofsummer's drilled down into it and found the source, it was inaccurate. But anyway, domestic violence clearly does happen.
Yeah.
And if it does, it needs to be sorted out.
OK. Good stuff. That's the Observer. And there are chemicals that come and go. But if you're really lucky, you might find one of those special forever chemicals, Paul.
Outdoor clothing brands still using forever chemicals despite health risk. So hikers may be inadvertently damaging the environment and risking their own health by wearing clothes made waterproof with forever chemicals. So forever chemicals does sound like you say, it sounds a bit like a recreational drug. I don't believe that it is. The Observer are preaching to their own people here, because this is all about people who wear fleeces and Patagonia stuff or whatever. They're just out there in their forever chemical clothing, and they don't realise. It's such a shame.
Well,
it's always
is a great opportunity for a bit of self-flagellation and guilt, isn't it?
They love it. It is the Observer, which is the Guardian on Sunday, and when we've got a cost of living crisis, most people can't afford to buy these clothes, yet they're banging on about it like it's the biggest issue. You know, it's not great, but hey, that lasts forever.
OK, I might try and fit the next story, unless you've got loads on this. Let's do the Independent. And rumours that Bear Grylls will be standing down from the Scouts because he helped Russell Brand with his baptism. So you can be redeemed in the eyes of the Lord, but not in the eyes of the Scouts, Cressida.
Exactly, or in the eyes of the Independent. Scouts issue statement after reports Bear Grylls standing down following Russell Brand baptism. So apparently Bear Grylls is a Christian. I didn't know that. I thought he was just a legend out in his Patagonia gear.
Now he's a double legend.
Well, yeah. So apparently Russell Brand's seen the light. He's now a Christian in his late 40s. And Bear Grylls baptised him. And this has got back to the Scouts. And they've said, mate, we've got to... Well, I assume the reason is it's a branding issue. We can't be associated with Mr. Brand. So, yeah, not a story of redemption, unfortunately.
It's horrible, our cancel culture, isn't it? I mean, you couldn't get a much more clear example. The baptism, where you're supposed to cleanse your sort of sins and you're born again. It's like, no, not in the woke world. No, you're cancelled. You can't even know a guy that's trying to redeem himself or stand next to him in a river.
Was Russell Brand ever charged or convicted of any of these?
No.
So I find it interesting that we have just bypassed the law entirely and said Russell Brand is this hideously bad person. I've seen the Channel 4 documentary, but if we based our legal system on the Channel 4 documentary, on everything that came out on Channel 4, we'd be in a lot of trouble. I think the Scouts have missed a trick here. I think that Bear Grylls is a great person to be leading the Scouts, particularly in this modern era. He was the youngest ever chief of the Scouts back in 2009. He has done absolutely zero wrong other than help another Christian into the faith. So I mean, of course, everyone's terrified now. The Scouts have fallen foul for the same thing.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be very fair. I'm not sure if there's, like, a definite direct link, but it seems he was announced he was going to carry on the Scouts. Now he's not, so these are the sort of rumours. So, all right, that is part 3 in the bag. But coming up in the final section, AI cops, life on Saturn, and Labour want to tax your garden. See you in a minute.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As he kissed her goodbye with...
Ian Phoenix was in charge of a counter-terrorism group dedicated to bringing peace to Northern Ireland. He was a husband and a father.
He was a real Irishman. He had the twinkly Irish eyes. He enjoyed a good joke. He liked a good glass of wine.
Susan Phoenix first heard of the accident that killed her husband on her car radio.
I was just driving along going, no, no, no. I can still see it, I can still feel it, even 30 years on.
On the 2nd of June, 1994, the Chinook helicopter that was taking them to a peace conference crashed into the side of a mountain on the Mull of Kintyre, killing 4 crew and 25 of the country's top counter-terrorism experts. At a board of inquiry, the Ministry of Defence concluded there was no doubt whatsoever the accident had been caused by the gross negligence of the 2 pilots, Flight Lieutenants Richard Cook and Jonathan Tapper. But there was doubt, plenty of it. There were no eyewitnesses on that foggy night, no flight data recorder, no voice recorder. It took until 2011 for the Ministry of Defence to admit they had not a shred of evidence. At the time of the crash, systematic errors in the software that controlled the engines had been reported. The MOD had seen its safety budget slashed in the run-up to the accident. In a statement, the Ministry of Defence told GB News, in 2010, the Mull of Kintyre independent review was carried out and the findings were fully accepted. The review did not find new evidence to suggest mechanical failure, and no safety issues with the Chinook Mark II were raised in the report. This weekend, the families have formed the Chinook Justice Campaign, but justice may never come.
The People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's crack on with the Sunday Telegraph. And as Bruce Springsteen once sang, there's a secret garden and we can tax you on it, Paul.
Did he?
Well, not the whole thing.
Labour to spy on homes to find sizable gardens that could put up council tax, says Tories. So homeowners with gardens will pay higher council tax under plans being considered by Labour, it's been claimed. Now, this has been doing the rounds for a while. Before the general election was called, we've covered this on Headliners before. I don't know if either of you two remember, but I know I have covered it before. It kind of reminds me of the window tax of 1696.
No.
It does, slightly, because they used
to... Turned into Simon Evans,
it was all of a sudden. Do you know what? They considered it a progressive tax then, and the Labour will consider, if they were to do it, will consider it a progressive tax now. It's a nonsense. Basically, you know, back in 1696, if you had more than 10 windows, you would be taxed
You can't block up your garden, can you?
No, you can't. So, you know, just it's the politics of envy again, isn't it? Someone's got a blooming garden. I love my garden.
You do, and so do your fans, Paul.
This is aimed directly at you. I've seen all your tweets about your garden.
Honestly, I've never been angry.
Actually, I feel good that you're going to be in trouble for having your garden, because I don't have one. Go on, Cressida. Politics of envy in the studio.
I was so daft. We had Starmer this week talking, launching the manifesto and saying, we won't raise income tax, we won't raise national insurance, we won't raise VAT, we're going to spank you for your garden. He didn't actually say that last bit. It comes from somewhere, doesn't it?
I think one of my followers said something like that to me once. Very disgusting. Had to report
worrying. Yeah, I mean, it's just tax, isn't it?
Taxing it. OK, on that note, let's do the Observer. And as David Bowie once sang, is there life on one of Saturn's moons, Kristen? It's a lesser-known B-side.
Not a B-side, I know. OK, is there life on one of Saturn's moons? Scientists plan a mission to find out. So they're taking a spaceship to space and they're going to land on this... What's wrong with that?
I'm resident expert.
Perfect. Lucky it's Stephen Allen in the studio.
Total spaceship.
So the discovery of water on this place, which is called...
yeah, go on.
Enchiladas? It sounds like a Mexican food.
Yeah, enchiladas, yes, please. Two for me.
They're going to send a robot to find out if we're alone in the universe. Apparently, it's a really small moon. It's only got a 310-mile diameter, so it's very small. Why are they bothering? Because it's got these things called geysers. I'm learning loads of words. Which is like a steam coming out of the Earth. So if there's enough water... No, definitely not.
They do call them geysers.
The point is, this little tiny moon has got heat, water and... what does it call it? organic material, which is all you need for life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the only material there is generally, isn't it?
I'm guessing that if there is there, Labour attacks it.
Yes.
I guess we should probably start with Uranus.
Can we tax Saturn's moons? Can we look at that?
We're not
We're
going to
sick of sticking plaster politics. We're taxing space. It's not a perfect impression, but it's good enough if you're saying something vaguely funny. OK, feels like we want to move on from that one, so let's move on and do The Observer with a story about the quantum compass, my favourite of the Daniel Craig Bond films.
Yes.
So funny tonight.
You're smashing it, Nick. It's the perfect place. London Underground hosts tests for quantum compass that could replace GPS. So this subatomic instrument will be able to accurately pinpoint locations underground and underwater where satellite signals are often blocked. So we're not going to be able to hide anywhere now, are we? Basically, you'll be able to see. There is nowhere to go now.
It's a good thing, Paul. Think about Titan's sub.
Yeah,
the moon.
No, it's not a moon. It's the disaster, the submarine that went down and nobody knew where it was. And we had a very intense few days. And what I mean by that is all the front pages were about the same thing.
So they could have identified a lot quicker that their loved ones have been blown into 50 billion pieces.
I suppose, yes, I suppose that's true. But this is great. This is great for people who want to explore the depths.
Well, I mean, it's going to get rid of Lassie. We're already going to know the boy's stuck down the well. You know, we're going to have technology. It's just everywhere now. I don't know if I'm happy with this, Nick.
OK, well, on a similar theme, let's do the Mail on Sunday. And AI cops are here. What could go wrong, Cressida?
How AI cops are already patrolling Britain's streets. From the eye in the sky to facial recognition surveillance in supermarkets, the Orwellian technology is being used to tackle crime. And some of this we've already heard about. We know about facial recognition. Not ideal because it's racist. It can't spot black people properly. It makes more mistakes on black people, which is not helpful. So this guy, Jake Herford, head of research and investigations at Big Brother Watch, warned the Mail Online we're sleepwalking into a high-tech police state. He thinks there's too much of this stuff going on. On the other hand, of course, it can catch wrong-uns if you know what their face is and then they turn up at an event with one of these cameras.
Bit handy, that. Some people only have one hand, Chris. I love... Sorry, Chris. She didn't deserve that. She's my biggest fan. I love true crime documentaries. And there aren't going to be any in 50 years' time because all the crime would have been solved by a couple of cameras. You can't even shoplift anymore, Nick. Get your head around that. What are you supposed to do? What are teenagers supposed to do now? If I didn't have shoplifting, I don't know what I would have done.
I think shoplifting's quite prevalent at the moment. I think shoplifting's doing fine.
Could be used for illegal immigration, no?
What you're saying is all crime will be solved, but on the downside, what will women watch on Netflix? Because they love those true crime. Well, you and Paul Cox.
Me and the women.
OK, well, thanks, guys. We've got to end the show there, sadly. It's pretty much over. Let's have another quick look at Sunday's front pages. So, the Mail on Sunday has, it's lovely to see you too, Kate. The Sunday Telegraph has, Our Fair Lady lifts nation's spirits. The Observer, both parties will leave NHS worse off than austerity years. The Sunday Times, PM, faith and duty guide me through my election trials. The Sunday Express, it's just Kate to see you again. And finally, the Daily Star, Nostradamus' cousin, 3 lines to win the Euros, so it's in the bag for tomorrow. Those are the front pages. That's all we have time for. Thanks to Paul and Cressida. Headlines is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. If you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. But for now, it's good night and God bless.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's going to be quite an unsettled weekend with some showers, some longer spells of rain, even some thunder at times this evening. And it's all because of this area of low pressure which is swirling around the UK, sticking around for Saturday and also Sunday. Into this evening, we'll see plenty of showers move their way across the UK. These are a little bit heavy at times, particularly across central areas. And we'll also start to see some longer outbreaks of rain move their way southwards into parts of Scotland. And a fair amount of rain around tonight, which means it's going to be a mild night on offer. So to start off on Sunday then, these outbreaks of rain will slowly move their way southwards across parts of Scotland. This could be a little bit heavy at times, particularly as it does push up over the hills. Elsewhere,